Hello and a very warm welcome to the Late Breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking, today reviewing the Brazilian Grand Prix, won by Max Verstappen, Lando Norris in second place and Fernando Alonso holding on to third place despite a robust challenge from Sergio Perez late on. The two separated at the flag by just half a tenth. That was exciting, Sam. It didn't quite follow suit for the rest of the Grand Prix, but at least we ended well.
We started really exciting. We ended really exciting. And everybody cared about the middle at that point.
I don't care.
Right?
That last lap was enough. I don't mind.
Right?
I wouldn't have minded something.
Well,
all right, fair dues.
Ben's got a problem. Of course he has. No, I mean, yeah, it was, we'll get onto it properly, but it did have a bit of a wave moment where it delivered a bit of a snooze fest and the sprint race was arguably a bit more entertaining.
Thank God for Fernando Alonso in so many senses of the word. Thank God.
Generally, and also in today's race.
Yes. Spanish Minister for Defence.
Spanish legend and AKA sexy man. What are you doing? Sorry, Harry's just rearranging.
Fernando Alonso.
Just moving the lights around.
Rearranging your house.
Don't worry.
It looks like it's going to fall over.
Nah, it'd be fine.
Can't wait. 32 minutes in, that's what I'm predicting. It's going to all come crashing down.
It's like...
Oh, we've got double lights. What's that one on?
Viewers, it's like at this angle. It's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa in his bedroom.
I'm going to turn that one off.
He hates the big light.
I hate the big light.
Big light energy.
I hate it.
I'll tell you what.
You carry on.
Whilst Harry goes and does that, I'll give you a quick run through of what we're going to talk about as soon as Harry's back. Moment of the race submissions coming up a little bit later on. Mercedes and Ferrari both having a disastrous day. Our thoughts on how both of their days unfolded. A bit on the Alonso versus Perez battle, of course. We'll start out front. Max Verstappen winning the Grand Prix pretty comfortably. I think it was 8 seconds at the flag separating himself and Lando Norris, and 34 seconds separating Max Verstappen and Fernando Alonso in third. All in all, another solid day in the office for Max Verstappen. We saw Lando Norris did have a sniff of an opportunity to an overtake done very early into the Grand Prix. Sam, would this have changed anything?
I mean, we had almost a very similar scenario during the sprint race as well, didn't we? Where Lando started, of course, on pole, Max got in front, and McLaren came out and announcing a statement that, yes, they were slightly disappointed in the start speed of Lando, but realistically, they thought that even if Lando did get the perfect start and began in front of Max, the outright pace of that Red Bull is so brutally powerful, especially when it gets into DRS range, that they don't think they'd have been able to hold off Max Verstappen for long over a full race period. And I think the same could have been said, the same here. I think that if Lando Norris gets the jump, gets the move done into, the kind of the first lap or whatever, when they got that ridiculous start and Aston Martin just dropped like an absolute rock in the sea, and Lando Norris went down the inside, it looked like there could have been a chance for a possibility of a move there. And of course, we got the red flag start where they could have gone again. I don't think it could have lasted. I think Lando Norris has proven that the car is now the problem. Lando Norris is out driving absolutely everyone else up and down this grid. He's, running the socks off that McLaren. And unless the car improves, I don't see how Lando Norris can particularly improve his fortunes. He's doing everything he can, and that's as good as it's going to get. Unless there's a problem with Verstappen or the Red Bull, which happens once in an actual lifetime at the moment, I'm not seeing Lando Norris beat that car on pace, just because the cars are simply not able to go faster than the Red Bull. So no, I wouldn't be too disheartened if I'm Norris or McLaren. I think they maximised absolutely every single point of this sprint race weekend that they could have done. They picked up a pole position. They picked up 2 second places. I genuinely think that that's as good as it's going to get for them. Yeah, I think they can walk away very happy. I think the car now needs to be worked on and they come back stronger.
It did feel like in the post-race interview, Lando Norris was almost saying like, yeah, this is kind of P1 for me at the moment. Almost a case of, yes, Max Verstappen is ahead of me, but also there's not really anything I can do about that. So I'm treating this as not a win, but almost like the best I can possibly achieve at this point in time. He did say, at least for now, we'll see if that materializes in any way. Harry, what were your thoughts? Do you think that if Lando Norris had made that move stick early on in that Grand Prix, anything would have changed in terms of the end result, or at least how the race unfolded?
Well, Verstappen may not have been in front for as long, but he still would have been in front.
At the end.
Yes.
That would have been true.
I feel like Lando Norris is living in his Max Verstappen 2020 era at the moment, where he's just on his own.
Good shout.
He cannot touch the were the Mercedes, but now the Red Bull, and he's faster than literally everyone else. He's just on his own out there. He's doing, like you say, it's kind of just he demolished everyone else there today, apart from Max. I think you said this, Ben, on a tweet, but apart from Max Verstappen, but everyone else was nowhere near him.
Everyone that isn't called Max Verstappen.
Yeah. So, look, it would have. I felt like it would have prolonged the inevitable. And obviously, something might have happened if they had overtaken and Max had to get back past. But on pace, Verstappen was. He just felt manageable all afternoon. I know it wasn't a massive gap, but it just felt like Verstappen held it there. We did enjoy the one lap of battle, and then Verstappen was like, nah.
The gap went from being a tenth
enough of that
to 1.1 seconds in 8 corners.
So he was like, nah, bored of that now.
You've had your fun.
Bye-bye.
I'll see you later.
Yeah, so it was, enjoyable while that lasted, but realistically, I don't think there was anything more Norris could have done this afternoon.
But on that, I do want to give credit to Max Verstappen as well, because even myself, in the point I literally just made, we go on about how good the Red Bull is and how good Max Verstappen is. I do think a lot of this performance is very much Max Verstappen being the best Max Verstappen could be, because you look at what Perez is doing, and Perez is finishing 24 seconds behind Lando Norris's McLaren. He's unable to get past Alonso in the Aston Martin, which has struggled time and time again. He's not qualifying in the top 3 or 4 regularly. He's had 1 podium since Italy, and that was in a sprint race. And yet Max Verstappen has won this was his 17th win this season, something along those lines, which is downright naughty, ridiculous, unfathomable. And so I do think that as much as the Red Bull is a very strong car, I do think it is Max Verstappen that is elevating it to be unbeatable. Whereas I think, as I've said before, if there are 2 Sergio Perez's in that Red Bull team, Lando Norris would have, I think, several race wins on his hands, and I think the battles everywhere would be far closer. So I do think it's Verstappen elevating it above what Norris is currently capable of, rather than simply just the car being the defining factor.
I would have been at least intrigued to see how it would have unfolded if Lando Norris had got that move done quite early on. What was fascinating to me was that, and this seems crazy to say based on where McLaren were at the beginning of this season. We know that they were slow everywhere at the beginning of this season, but particularly in a straight line. That McLaren was rapid in the final sector. I imagine telling McLaren that 15 races ago, they'd probably have said you were lying. Lando Norris only just about got DRS on Max Verstappen down that back straight, and still ended up only a 10th or a 10th and a half behind Verstappen going into turn 1. He ate up nearly a second on that back straight. And now I think it is fairly obvious based on what you've already said, where Verstappen opens up that lead to 1.1 seconds very quickly, that Norris was probably using every single part of his battery possible. I mean, I think that's the only explanation there. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see, because what does Verstappen do at that point? If he can get past almost straight away again, then, it doesn't really matter and the same sort of race unfolds. But what would have been intriguing is if Verstappen at least immediately couldn't get past Lando Norris. Does he try the undercut? Does he go longer? I think ultimately Verstappen would have got him either way, whether he went for that undercut or whether he went for the sort of optimum strategy. I think Verstappen had the pace regardless. But if he couldn't get past initially, I don't know, that would have been somewhat interesting to see how the team would have handled that situation, because we saw with plenty of drivers who went for undercuts quite early on, didn't really pay off. I think Ocon might be coming in for his 8th stop about now. Seems about
Why
time.
so many stops?
Man loves the pits.
Why?
It just didn't work for him, right? He came in too early. So if Verstappen had been baited into something like that, I don't know how it would have ended up exactly. Lando Norris, as referenced, finished 26 seconds clear of everyone who wasn't named Max Verstappen. He had a full pit stop on absolutely everyone in that field apart from the Red Bull driver out in front. I mentioned this in the sprint review yesterday, Sam, that Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, at least this weekend, seem to be just completely clear of everyone else. Is Lando Norris making a case to say that he's the second best driver in this sport?
I think making a case is the correct phrase. I think if you had come out and said he's definitely the second best driver in this sport, I think you might have been a little bit too audacious. But he is well and truly comfortably in that conversation for the second best driver currently on form in this sport. I think it might be a little bit unfair to look past Lewis Hamilton after the last few Grand Prix. I think Brazil was more an anomaly rather than the overall form of both where the Mercedes car is and what Lewis Hamilton is capable of. And I think this season, he is still being outright the second best driver across this whole season. But in raw speed, in the ability that Lando is showing, yes, he could be up there. I think Lando is lacking consistency and being able to bring it home in under pressure situations. We saw that in Qatar, we've seen it in Mexico, and we saw it a bit in the USGP as well with that tyre management situation that was going on. I just think that Lando is well on his way to being a world beater. He could be one of those drivers that is essentially a multiple-time world champion in the waiting, but he is unfortunately sat behind one of the all-time greats in Max Verstappen, and that might just be part of his devastating prowess that he has to go through. But I do think that if you were to say, and if anyone were to turn around and go, I think Lando Norris is the second best driver right now in Formula One, I wouldn't be angry at them. I would listen. I'll have a conversation with them instead of just shooting them down.
The good news for Lando Norris is that according to Harry Eads' timelines, Lando Norris will be beating Max Verstappen at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix next year for his first title in definitely not controversial circumstances.
Did I say that?
Well, no, you just said that Norris was in his 2020 Verstappen phase.
Oh, I see. Oh, right. Yeah.
Timeline. Next year is going to be good for him.
If we get that next year, I'm buzzing.
That'd be hilarious. Bring that on.
I am buzzing.
What were your thoughts on that question, Harry? Do you think it's too early to say something like that, or do you think he is making the case?
He's certainly making a case for this, but I guess my only problem with Norris at currently are just a few little errors,
a few hiccups
that crept in. Some unlucky, some are his own making. But there's no denying at least the past few races, you'd say he's been the second best. Hamilton, as you say, probably has a case for the year itself. Only really, today was pretty poor, but the Mercedes was a tractor.
Yeah, if Russell was flying high and Hamilton was dragging it back, then I'd say this is on Hamilton, but the car clearly was a dog.
Qatar, obviously not great. But apart from that, Hamilton's had a pretty stellar year. So for the entire year, you might say Hamilton pips Norris on this occasion, but I think there's no denying that in his current form, minus hiccups, Norris is making a case for runner-up.
I think that's the frustrating thing with Lando. Every time there is something good, there might be a little sprinkling of something frustrating, like the bad qualifying in Mexico was his fault. He then displayed a brilliant performance to bring it back, but it could have been so much more.
He was relatively lucky today. I know it wasn't a horrendous qualifying because, it was top 10, but he was relatively lucky today of the carnage at the start and then ending up P2 from all of that. I'm not saying it would have made the end result different, but he had way less work to do. He probably would have got P2 with a clean start though, right?
I agree. I think
what he did was independent of the stuff happening behind.
Yeah, I think he got a great start.
No, sorry, I didn't really mean the crashing behind. Like, the two Aston Martins couldn't start the race, apparently. I don't know. Anyway, it's a pretty weak argument to say that it's been a bad weekend for him, but apart from that, it's been great.
Yeah, I tend to think I agree with what both of you said there, in that as a season as a whole, and with a few issues popping up here and there, it's difficult to say that Lando Norris is outright the second best driver in this sport. But if you were to say to me, here's 20 drivers, everything is going to go right for all 20, what order are you putting them in? He might be second, because when everything is going right for Lando Norris, he is very difficult to stop. And I think you'd probably put Hamilton and Leclerc in that conversation as well, in that when everything's going well for them, they just have this groove. But Lando Norris is definitely amongst that group too. Today was one such occasion. And to just mention the point again, take away Max Verstappen from that Grand Prix and Lando Norris has a race win by 25 seconds. Like, that should tell you everything you need to know about how good he was out there.
I do, just on that, Ben, about that group, I do think that currently Norris is elevating himself above Russell, which is interesting considering obviously they came up in the same year from F2. And in that period, Russell won the F2 Championship and Norris came as a runner-up. But I do currently think that Norris is the more complete driver of the two.
Having said that, Russell did absolutely mug him off yesterday with that overtake on the opening lap.
But he did. But I think the result today flips it back and reverses it.
Tractor.
And also, didn't Norris absolutely mug off Russell in Mexico as well?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
Swings and roundabouts.
I think it's a fair argument.
Yeah, I know we mentioned this in the preview, but a year can be a long time, and a year since George Russell took that first victory and what happened out there today, it's two different worlds. Driver of the day, should we go with that?
Yes, let's do it.
The verdict is in. You're the driver of the day. You're the driver of the day. You're good at driving.
It's so hard not to sing along to those.
It's just catchy.
Speaking of, we had a review come through very recently to say that someone, and I can't remember your name off the top of my head, apologies, but someone gave us a very nice review and said that the problem is the jingles and how you accidentally start singing them in places where you shouldn't. And I think it was this one that they accidentally started going, "You're good at driving," in an office or something like that.
So, I like that.
Sam, what have you got for driver of the day?
I'm just going straight in. Big Fernando. As much as Max Verstappen was dominant, Lando Norris did absolutely fantastic work. That performance, that Aston Martin that's been flailing, the fact that he kept so many drivers at bay, the defense against Sergio Perez, the last gasp attack down the start-finish straight, that held him off was phenomenal. He also, I know this doesn't really count for anything, but he also put on a show. And he's such a showman, and I love that. I love that he's just exciting, and you just get that from Fernando. So, yeah, big up Fernando. He's my driver of the day by a country mile. Also, I know that everyone loves him. I am sick of seeing Lando Norris win every driver of the day vote on the telly. Stop it. Mix it up, baby.
Harry?
I have to agree with Sam.
Lovely.
I mean, I know I am head of the fan club, but that fence was filthy.
Oh,
filth, pure strategic filth.
Correct.
And I really enjoyed that he spent all of the infield of that lap recharging his batteries.
Flashy flash.
Just to use them on the main straight, and did that for about 20 laps. Like Sergio, mate.
Get it done.
Learn from that.
Get it done.
Yeah, I know it was obviously an exciting finish, but I think the performance goes back further than that for me. It's the defense itself. Even in that, towards the end of that second stint where Sergio was closed up to him, and then he was like, "Oh no, can't get past." So they tried to undercut him.
Yeah.
I know Alonso. Who undercut him?
Alonso pitting first.
Yeah. So yeah, Alonso for me. Norris and Verstappen, clear nominations there as well. Also shout out.
Yeah.
Pierre Gasly
and little Yuki.
Yuki Poos.
Yuki Poos.
Yeah, Gasly. What? I forgot he was driving an Alpine.
P7.
I know.
Just mugging off Mercedes.
Yeah. Crazy times.
I think it's got to be one of the top three, basically. Do you remember when this award was introduced and it was known as the Max Verstappen Award?
Yes.
And he got it so frequently, similar to what is happening with Lando Norris right now. He got it so frequently. And just fast forward a number of years, and here we are in 2023. Verstappen keeps winning races by such a massive margin and not getting in the top three because we're just so used to his dominance. But we shouldn't be. He's still performing brilliantly out there. So yeah, Norris, Verstappen, or Alonso, take your pick. They've kind of got different reasons as to why you'd pick them. I will go for Verstappen. He won a race and he won it really comfortably. Well done, sir. Fair.
I'm sure Maxi Verstappen is quite happy to never win driver of the day if he keeps winning the real race.
Valid.
I think he's still out there for the cryptocurrency overtaking award.
When will someone pass me so I can win that one and overtake them back?
He's doing really poorly in that championship. He needs to work on that. Yeah. What about worst driver of the day?
This one's really tricky, I think.
Play the jingle, mate.
Oh, I forget that they're coming.
Get in the bin. Worst driver of the day. Worst driver of the day. You suck at driving.
I'll continue my statement. This bit's really tricky, actually. Genuinely, because everyone crashed, and I genuinely think that a lot of the crashing wasn't really anyone's fault. Also, can we just shout out Paul Ricciardo for getting absolutely belted in the back by that tyre? He was just trying to mind his own business.
Man thought he'd avoided a crash and then the tyre was like, no.
No, you will also suffer.
One good result this season, no more.
No more for you, Aussie man. Headlines in Australia, Aussie man gets hit by rubber. I don't really know because I think everyone's almost got a bit of a valid excuse. I guess Esteban Ocon maybe deserves a bit of a shout because, you know, the strategy was poor. He couldn't work it out like his teammate did. I think the Mercedes guys had more of a car problem than they did a driver problem. Carlos Sainz, the Ferrari wasn't great. Oscar Piastri, he's not been good all weekend, but he also got absolutely rear-ended by the Haas when it was catapulting off by Williams. It's just not an easy selection this time out, I don't think.
No,
even Lance Stroll was quite good. You know?
Hey, Lance Stroll was 6 seconds behind Alonso, who was getting unanimous votes for driver of the day.
Exactly.
Stroll was good.
And he brought home very solid points, especially after, you know, he qualified, third and finished fifth in that Aston Martin. Really, really good. This is a harsh one. I am going to give it to Ocon simply because the cars were working on both ends. The strategy didn't pay off for him, which I think the driver has influence on, and his teammate properly beat him. But I'm saying that with a caveat that I think that's harsh.
Yeah, fair.
I don't think it's harsh. Man was slow.
Okay, good.
Do you remember that early DRS train where like everyone was behind Lewis Hamilton?
Yes.
And then it was Esteban Ocon just like 1.5 seconds back. It's like, why can't you keep up? Everyone else can. He was really slow.
Why can't you keep up?
Can you please start Le Plan at some point? You are making me look really stupid at this point.
Mate, it starts at race 100.
Let's go with that. I've got Ocon. The other contender from my side was Yuki Tsunoda. I thought he had a poor race in that he made a mistake on lap 1, which cost him a position. He then made another mistake, which cost him a position to Valtteri Bottas a little bit later on. Both of those completely self-inflicted. I actually think that AlphaTauri had the pace to finish a couple of positions ahead of where he did. I think he could have beaten Lewis Hamilton. I think he also could have beaten Pierre Gasly. I think he should have been competing with Carlos Sainz for P6 based on where I think that AlphaTauri should have been, and actually where I think Daniel Ricciardo would have been if he didn't have that incident, that unfortunate incident on lap 1. But I am going to give it to Ocon because he was slow.
Yuki's just got to work out these silly little mistakes, isn't he? The raw pace is there on the day at the moment, but he just keeps running off the road. We were watching the timing, weren't we? And all of a sudden, Bottas went past him, and then it was a 3-second gap to Bottas. We're thinking, what's happened here then? Just drove off the road. You silly bugger.
Almost lost out to Sargent as well.
Oh, Sargent 1 place away from points. That is gutting. Just another retirement needed.
Oh dear.
Hey, US GP. He needed 2 retirements that day. He only needs 1 today.
That's so true. And, you know, Las Vegas, a lot of straights.
Oh,
check those blanks. Check those blanks.
Harry, got any thoughts?
For the sake of variety, will give it to Yuki because you shouldn't fall off the road.
Fair.
Right
Good
down.
point, that.
That is very fair.
I thought I was watching Sam in season 1 of the Late Breaking Online Racing League.
I don't need to be dodging that shade right
That's
now.
That's a niche reference.
I don't need to be dodging that insult right now. I've already lost the bold predictions confirmed. I don't need you throwing that at me, Ben, dragging up 7 years ago.
It's so funny because that infield bit now is they've put like where people can go.
Yeah.
So you can't even do it.
Sam was driving around there lunchtime ago.
It's just driving around.
Folks, go find it. I went on a mission to explore the whole infield section.
It's on YouTube somewhere. I'll go for Yuki because, as I said, I think that they could have had a better result. I know Ricciardo was hampered by tyre, but I think AlphaTauri probably will walk away from this weekend and go, that didn't go that well.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Okay, good. Let's move on.
Move on.
That was your question.
Shut up, you old man. With red flags,
yeah.
Why is the rule not followed much as like the safety car where lapped cars can come back round to the lap that is actually the racing lap?
Banter.
Valid point.
F1 banter.
F1 banter.
Like, honestly, what's the point of starting them a lap down? Everything else gets repaired. You can fix your car, change your tyres, you can do whatever you want, but you can't get back on the lead lap. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I get what happens if, I don't know, someone re-enters a race after they retired like 10 laps ago. Can they just go back onto the lead lap?
Well, isn't the rule that if you get out of the car around the track that you're removed from the race?
I don't know, but banter, I think, is the reason. Yeah. Look at the documents. It does say banter.
Frederick Ian Anderson, Rule 19.3, banter.
Now seems like a good time to go for our first break. We'll do big brain strategy a little bit later on in the show. On the other side, we'll be discussing Fernando Alonso and Sergio Perez's epic battle to the line.
Woohoo! I haven't thought of one.
Okay, Fernando Alonso and Sergio Perez, one of the highlights, if not the highlight, from the Brazilian Grand Prix today. Fernando Alonso claiming the podium by 0.05 seconds. It was a very exciting finale. I was half expecting them to just stay on board with Max Verstappen as he went round his in-lap.
My God.
Oh, we were screaming at the telly.
You can go and see it on our Instagram.
You can see it on
it's
Instagram
ridiculous.
or our TikTok. We were screaming at him.
Sam, where do you land on the discussion of, is this brilliance from Fernando Alonso? Is this disappointing in any way from Sergio Perez, or is it a bit of both?
I think you've nailed it on the head in that go there. It's a little bit of both. I think we saw the combination of Sergio Perez not having that final hand in his game. You know, he can't play that final card where he can make a ruthless overtake and get the job done and pull away. And Sergio Perez's strengths are very much, let me sit in clean air, let me run these tyres until they die, and I will nurse them all the way home. And he's able to pull out a very strong race when he's just left to his own devices and no one else is around him. But when it comes to, attacking, especially, defending not so much, but attacking, he historically can't seem, much like Valtteri Bottas a little bit, can't seem to get the job done when it matters on track. And I think it's cost him here again. He got that move done, and you heard Fernando Alonso in the post-race interview going, that's it, podium's gone. And then he went, you broke slightly too late into turn one. It's on again. I've got you. And he knew that, and that's the difference between the two. Fernando Alonso has this instinct in him of, you've made a slight mistake, I can make an overtake work immediately. And there was no hesitation, no dilly-dallying around. He put the car in the right place, lined it up perfectly, and he was ruthless in that overtake back on Sergio Perez to pick up the podium again in a car that is, in theory, much more inferior than the one he's battling against. And I think that Fernando Alonso is not only a bit of a racing god, as we like to give him the credit for. The man can overtake. The man strategically is 10 years ahead of every single other person on that racetrack. But when you then pair that up against Sergio Perez, who mentally is on a bit of a downer, I think, morale-wise, he's struggling. He wants a clean and easy result. He's had, as we said, one podium since Italy. He's trying to pick up those regular appearances on that podium and results at the top of the end of the table. When you're dealing with Fernando Alonso, who is hungry for a podium and hasn't had one since Zandvoort, that combination of those two result in Fernando Alonso winning. And I just think that Sergio Perez needs to be more ruthless. I don't think he's got the final cut-through approach to make it work for himself when it comes to taking what he needs last minute. So, I think it's a bit of both. I think that against some other drivers, Sergio might be able to get it done, but against Fernando, no.
What were your thoughts on it, Harry?
I think my thoughts are that I'm in love with Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, we've known that since 2007.
Yeah, I know, but I want to marry him and have his children.
That's not new either.
You could just, I don't know, when we were watching that battle and Sergio was cruising up to the back of him and I was thinking, oh, wait, this is going to be pretty easy. But when he cruised up to the back of him both times and then the gap just stopped. Yeah. Like it didn't move. And even actually towards the end of that second stint, it opened up again. You were like, oh, this is going to be tasty. I think Perez will walk away from that's a disappointment for Perez. Everyone will think we hate Perez. I think Perez has had a decent weekend this weekend, but you got to look at the car he's in. Not Red Bull's most dominant weekend, I don't think, but he had the pace to be on the podium today. And he didn't. And I think that's going to be a disappointment. But having said that, I think if it had been, 90% of any of the grid that wasn't either, Verstappen, Alonso, Hamilton, then he'd have got past. And he didn't because Alonso's a god. I think his defense was insane. And even just the mentality of just not giving up, because when Perez got past, you thought, oh, well.
A lot of drivers will, you see the gap open up massively immediately.
But he stayed on him. If it had been more laps of the race, we may not have got there, but he stayed on him for that lap. And then as we came back around to the start finish straight, sort of pressured him into that mistake, as you mentioned, into turn one, which just opened up the gap for Alonso. And for Perez, that's probably going to be the one that hurts the most, not the fact that he couldn't get past for 20 laps, it's the fact that he did get past and then misjudged it. Yeah, misjudged it. And you do not give Fernando Alonso another chance to get back in front of you, because he will take it.
I think what is also very frustrating for Sergio Perez is one of Red Bull's biggest strengths is including Max Verstappen, is their ability to use DRS to their advantage. And whilst I think that advantage has been a little bit minimized over the last few Grand Prix, Interlagos, Sao Paulo, Brazil, the track here has essentially two proper places for overtaking. It's down into turn 1 and it's down into turn 4. And both those are often fueled by DRS, which complements Red Bull massively. And I just think that Sergio Perez, time and time again, was running different lines to everyone else going into Jingsao, the penultimate corner. And it just wasn't setting him up for a proper run down to
How many times do you have to
learn?
How many times do you have to look at the lines Alonso's taking through?
And you're losing time up to the DRS detection point, and those extra tenths that you're losing are enough to then not catch the car going into the first turn to the Senna S's. And I just think 71 times we've gone through this part of the track, and you're still not able to rectify a little bit of time that you're losing, which is enough to stop you getting the overtake done. And again, that is what separates the elite from someone like Sergio Perez, who is just very good at what they're doing. So I do think it's disappointing. I do think the Red Bull car, driven by, again, if it was two Max Verstappens, will have got the job done comfortably.
There are some elite drivers in F1 who each have their own strengths and occasionally weaknesses as well. I genuinely don't know if any other driver on that grid would have kept P3 other than Fernando Alonso. I don't know if there's one other driver that would have done. Maybe Max Verstappen. I don't think, honestly, I don't think Lewis Hamilton keeps that position. And that's not to say that I think Fernando Alonso is even a better driver than Lewis Hamilton, but in terms of their strengths and weaknesses, this played into exactly what Fernando Alonso at this point in his career is brilliant at, which is racing the driver, which is sometimes something you need to do. You had examples of Max Verstappen and Lando Norris today were very much not racing themselves, but almost like what is the optimum race time I can finish with? What is the lowest possible time I can get to the end of the race? Fernando Alonso was driving a different way, in that Fernando Alonso didn't necessarily cared where he was going to finish in terms of time. All that he cared about was, is it ahead of Sergio Perez or not? Which is exactly what he needed to do. And I think he was brilliant in his defense. What we often saw going through the Senna S is those drivers that committed to being overtaken as early as possible often played it the best. In that, as soon as Alonso realized Perez had a sniff of an opportunity to go up the inside of him, Alonso immediately bailed. He went, right, he can go past here. I don't care. I'm now going to get him back at the next opportunity. We saw with other drivers, and I was quite critical of Daniel Ricciardo in the sprint race. Ricciardo, on a few occasions, tried to hang it around the outside of that first corner, and it just logically doesn't make sense to try that. It is far better to do what Alonso did, which is surrender the position, knowing you're going to give yourself the opportunity to get it back 20 seconds later. I think Alonso played it absolutely perfectly. From Perez's perspective, I think he can be... I don't know if he can be content. I think he was... I agree with you, Harry. I think he was all right out there today. And I think he'll be annoyed in that the exact move that he tried to pull off on Alonso today is exactly what he did yesterday to George Russell. Like he had the opportunity to overtake George Russell once yesterday, didn't work, came back the second time, learned from his mistake, and got the job done. Now, admittedly, Alonso is faster today than what Russell was yesterday, but all he needed to do was a carbon copy of that. And for whatever reason, to your points, he couldn't learn from the previous attempts to make that work. I think he was pace-wise pretty good out there. And I think he probably was the third fastest driver. I remember saying yesterday that I think that's where he probably should end up. Alonso had solid pace, but Perez definitely had enough to get P3. I don't think he's going to be outright disappointed. He has extended that advantage over Lewis Hamilton. That's plus 8 points in his favour as a result of today. Could it have been more? Yeah, I think it probably could have been. In terms of Aston Martin, looking at them, because they have had a dire time as of late. I know we spoke about this in the preview episode about how poor their performances have been in the last 6 Grand Prix or so. But here, 25 points going their way, with 15 coming from Alonso and 10 coming from Stroll. How encouraging is that result, Sam, given their recent struggles?
I think it's incredibly encouraging, but at the same time, it's so disheartening, and I'm going to go into detail why. The development that Aston Martin saw last season, where they rapidly started picking up results at the back end of the season, where they went from being the 8th, 7th slowest team on a regular occasion to, from pretty much, Zandvoort, Italy last year to the end of the season, they were regularly in the top 5 or 6, points finishers. And we thought, wow, this development's amazing. If we start the 2023 season, Fernando Alonso picks up a podium. He picks up several more podiums. Lance Stroll is regularly picking up good points as well. And you know what? Lance Stroll's not a world beater, but hey, it's okay. We'd like to see more, but it's all right. And then all of a sudden, from Zandvoort onwards, they become a shocker of a car. And Ben, you said it, and I think we all agree that in Mexico, they might have been the slowest car going around the track. And the fact that they went from being arguably the second fastest team to the slowest team across one whole season is shocking. Come to Brazil, and it gets publicised that Fernando Alonso has said, let's go back to the proper old spec of the car. Not the one that was 2 races ago, not the one from, Mexico, not the one from Qatar, the old spec of the car, essentially before most of their upgrades were fitted, and it's this much faster, it's this much more competitive, tells me that Aston Martin did a copy and paste on Red Bull going into the new season. They had to play with some stuff, it worked, and then they didn't have an absolute Scooby-Doo on what to do with their upgrades from that point moving forward. So it's fantastic that the initial concept that they designed worked brilliantly, and that Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll equally around a track like Brazil can pull off a fantastic performance. What is incredibly concerning is that team has had no understanding of how to progress that design or that car any point across this whole season. It makes me very worried that going into 2024, they might stagnate. They might get to that point where they go, the direction we went in just didn't work. We had no idea what was wrong with it, and we're still not sure what's wrong with it. And so this might be all the glory we see. They might naturally start to fall back through the order anyway if they can't find a design that works for them, that they fundamentally understand. I think similar things can be said for Mercedes, that they still don't fundamentally understand what's wrong with their car either. But it is promising that they picked up results. It is promising that they've been competitive again, that they scored more than McLaren, who are their closest rivals at the moment in this Grand Prix. In theory, it's possible to happen again, both at Vegas and at Abu Dhabi. So you never know. I think the fight is done, but we've seen stranger things happen. It could come back their way. Whilst it is uplifting for them to get this result, the bigger concern for me is their lack of understanding of how their own car works and what direction they need to take it in, because they're never going to win races, let alone championships, if they cannot figure out the base foundation of how this car needs to succeed.
Yeah, it sounds massively counterintuitive, but for those exact reasons, I think this is in a weird way discouraging, because they have experimented with upgrades that have not worked. They've gone back to the old spec of car. Yes, they have a fundamentally good car. That in itself is encouraging, but they have just gone on this development path for a long time and not made any progress. And whilst this is a return to form in some respects, yes, it's far better than what they've had the last 6 Grand Prix. It's still quite a long way off where they'd like it to be. They are still further behind Red Bull now than they were at the beginning of this year. We're talking about Fernando Alonso being 35 seconds behind Verstappen and Stroll being 40 seconds behind Verstappen as a win, which on the surface of it is a bit worrying. I hope that they do have some other development plans, because they can't just keep the current spec car and not develop it and expect it to remain competitive. Like, it's not going to get any closer to Red Bull, using that strategy. It's not going to work. So it's a bit of an odd one. The result is great, but it's discouraging the way they've had to achieve it, which is almost to go backwards to go forwards. What were your thoughts, Harry?
Yeah, it's going to be a worry for Aston Martin that this, even though it's good, is is from the car that, well, it's not the car from the start of the year, but it's certainly a car that's from the middle of the year at least, and not the more recent one that they've been bringing to races in Mexico and US, for example. So yes, encouraging, but that's going to be a real head scratcher for them. And they say that, they understand the car more. Maybe that is true, but it's a real lost opportunity for this year. Because, Alonso obviously did come third, but Norris was still comfortably in front of him. So that McLaren is still the quicker car. And for once, it was both Aston Martins outscoring one McLaren, which has been a rarity this year. So, yeah, they'll be encouraged for the rest of the year, I'm sure, or the remaining 2 races we've got. But yeah, if the wider picture, it's a little bit of a concern.
Okay, let's take our second break. On the other side, we'll be discussing Ferrari, Mercedes, and reviewing our bold predictions.
Yay!
Okay, let's move on. Ferrari.
Ooh, I am the unluckiest driver.
To God, man.
I am the unluckiest driver.
Charles Leclerc qualified on the front row of the grid, and he crashed on the formation lap. Because of an issue that wasn't his.
No hydraulics for you, M9.
No hydraulics for you, M9.
He just cursed himself as the most unlucky driver in F1. I mean, why is there left to say about this team? I don't even want to call him a team. This disaster. I mean, what did you make of it, Sam? Charles Leclerc, again, in a good qualifying position, and he walks away with 0 points, not even able to take the start of the race.
Yeah, hydraulics, Lecrytronics.
No.
It's not...
No.
Or as my father sent me a message saying, Chucky Leclucky. I can't even say it. Unlucky. Which is, again, also so bad.
Needs a bit of work, that one.
It does. I mean, I said it wrong. Sorry.
Shout.
I've ruined it. But... I mean, Ferrari, Harry, please, could you fill in with the...
What are you doing?
Thank you kindly. It's just so... It's like the Da Vinci Code at this point. You can't crack this uncrackable riddle, that is now lasting a lifetime. They still somehow manage to get something wrong, despite something being good. And it's another thing. Every single time, it's something different that goes wrong. The strategy seemingly starts to get better. Okay, then the car isn't very good all of a sudden. The car gets better. It can't use its tyres. The tyre issue gets better. Your hydraulics fail. It's literally a scrapbook of problems, and they are flicking through every single page. You're going, we'll have this one, this race. That's a new one. And I do feel so sorry for Charles Leclerc because... We discussed, who's the second best driver in Formula One at the moment. His name barely made an appearance. And yet I think 18 months ago, he would be in the conversation as being the second best driver in the sport and would have come up well before the likes of Lando Norris, would have been on par with the likes of Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. But he's maybe the 5th or 6th driver getting mentioned. He's being schooled by Carlos Sainz in the points tally at the moment, and arguably that's because of a lot of bad performance-related issues with the car. He's had the DSQ, he's had essentially 2 DNSs now. He's had DNFs up the wazoo, and I just think that
up the wazoo.
I just think that this guy can't catch a break. He must have dug a 10-foot hole somewhere and just dropped his morale straight into it because he's got no confidence left, bless him. And it's undying faith in the church that is Ferrari. It's not yielding. He's not wavering. And the man is being let down time and time again. And Carlos Sainz isn't exactly having a field day of it. He's just getting the better end of a really pooey stick. It's not like it's flying high for him also. He's coming home just in front of Pierre Gasly, over a minute away from the lead of this Grand Prix. It's a shocker. And Ferrari, who were in the title fight for a lot of the season last year, have somehow now arguably regularly got the 4th or 5th fastest car. They can't get a race win to buy one. They're somehow the only team that did get a race win this season of a main Grand Prix, and yet I think arguably that wasn't due to absolute raw performance. It was the Red Bull having a shocker. So, I feel so sorry for him. Literally, you may as well go for a little wee-wee on the floor and rolling it. It's probably a slightly more pleasurable experience than driving that car at the moment
Lord.
Because it's really, really shocking. And I imagine that Charles and probably Carlos are desperately hoping that this season just comes to an end.
Try again next year.
Give it another go. You've done it every other year. Try it again. So why not go another time?
Yeah. Nice.
Last season, Ferrari as a constructor were 205 points behind Red Bull. They are currently 420 points behind Red Bull, despite having no Blaze. Harry, what did you make of Leclerc's? It's not even classed as a retirement. It's a DNS.
A DNS, yeah.
Another one.
Another one.
Who gets 2 DNSs in a season? How often does that happen?
Ferrari. It's real Ferrari 1996 vibes we're on now.
Oh
yeah, great car.
Another 4 years.
They'll be champions, mate. Yeah, it's just free Leclerc. How many times are we going to say it?
I'm going to do the t-shirts.
Free that man.
I'm doing the t-shirts.
Ferrari, both Ferrari drivers after the sprint shootout yesterday, I don't say this, they were smug, but they were saying about how they'd actually sacrificed this. They were going to sacrifice the entire sprint day, which, fair dues because it's crap. But with their tyres, because they wanted to be in a better position for race day, the actual Grand Prix win day. I don't know, Sainz didn't set the world alight today, but who knows where Leclerc could have been starting on the front row, and he can't even get there. Can't even get there. And it's
Sasuke's all they do well.
It's just, for Leclerc, it's just embarrassing. I know we know it wasn't him that crashed it, but crashing out on the formation lap.
It's embarrassing.
Nope. So yeah, this is just another one to add to Ferrari's. The irony being that they're the only ones that have actually won a Grand Prix other than Red Bull.
Yeah, that's so
Feels
Ferrari.
undeserved.
It's so Ferrari.
But they were very good that day. One day a year they get it.
Day.
Yeah. Carlos Sainz was mega.
Poor Leclerc. I don't know what else there is more to say about it, but just for his sake, I pray they get a better car strategy, etc., etc.
Right off the whole team.
Start again.
Free Leclerc. Fraudulent team. Right. Good news for Ferrari. They scored double the amount of points that Mercedes did. Mercedes scored a grand total of 4 points, which you might say, well, one of them retired, but if that didn't happen, they might have ended up with 5. Lewis Hamilton finished 8th. George Russell retired from the Grand Prix. They just fell backwards and backwards and backwards, which was impressive because they didn't start that high up in the first place. Sam, what did you make of Mercedes' lack of pace, given this was the last track they won at?
I think the expressions across the entire Mercedes team every time they cut to the garage, Toto Wolff looking, mortified, Mick Schumacher desperately thinking, God, get me out of here. Why have I got to be here, please?
This is worse than Haas.
At least I was driving a car there. I think, much like Aston Martin, in the sense that Aston Martin created this great car but don't really know what to do with it at this point. Mercedes changed their philosophy. They released that apology, remember? And then they changed their philosophy. We might get another apology letter today. And they changed their philosophy, and I don't think they have an absolute clue what to do with it. I don't think they understand how it works with their tyres. There was a statement released by George Russell in an interview, I believe, with Autosport, where he came out and said that the thing letting us down the most is not understanding. He called it the black magic of Pirelli tyres. And that is the understanding of the tyres only work in such a minute sweet spot, and we just can't crack what that sweet spot is. We cannot get those tyres into that working window on a regular enough basis that actually we see some success. And he talked about how some Grand Prix, especially with the harder compound tyre, will see them all of a sudden flying. They'll become the fastest car on track, but then every other tyre, at every other track, they are just literally rubbish, not good enough. And here was almost the ultimate example of that. The tyres for them simply didn't work. I don't think either driver knew what tyre they wanted to be on. Lewis Hamilton at one point going, can I be on the hard tyre? They put him on the soft tyre. The medium was rubbish for them. They couldn't maximise the soft when everyone else was getting past them. The car, Martin Brundle liked to go on about having a parachute hanging off the back of it at one point.
Why was it so slow in a straight line?
How has it become this slow?
No.
How is it? Pierre Gasly got past it in a straight line, and Alpine have been the ones going, can we do an engine check, please? Because we're really slow in a straight line. Not that slow.
He flew past him.
He went straight past him.
See you later, Lewis.
that Alpine could not break the speed limit on a motorway.
Honestly.
That's how slow it is.
Honestly, you wouldn't get a speeding ticket in that Mercedes, genuinely in a 20 zone. I don't think they know, and consequently, I don't think we know what's wrong with it. But Mercedes have got some real woes in their foundations. They have built their car on sand, and that make for a tricky building process for anyone. And I think they need to, very much like Ferrari, rip it all apart and just start again. I'm hoping with James Allison out the head of the development phase that's going into 2024, we're going to see a more focused, understood approach. Obviously, he was a bit of the mastermind behind their glory in the earlier days, that we might see a little return to form. And Christian Horner did recently come out and say that we haven't seen the full effects of the penalty from breaking the cost cap. So who knows? We might see a transition of the top dogs.
They finished that now, though.
Yeah, I know, but apparently we've not seen the effects.
Okay.
I don't think we will. But hey, Christian Horner said different, so we'll see how it goes. So we might see a changing of the guard, but I say that hopefully when you look at the likes of Aston Martin, Mercedes and Ferrari not having a bloody clue what they're doing, and McLaren had to start 17th every single season to have a good one, apparently. So, they're not helping themselves. Mercedes are having a shocker. I just don't think they know what's going on with that car, and it is abysmal. This was the worst Formula One weekend that Mercedes have had in a long time, I think, which is amazing that they won here only a year ago.
My dad texted me while we were recording because he's still watching on Sky, and they interviewed Toto, and he called the car a miserable thing.
Fair.
He's not wrong. He's
completely
not wrong.
fair.
I hate it.
Oh dear.
I was trying to go back. This is sort of on the fly stats here because their best position today was 8th. And I was looking back through the years, like at other times where their best result was 8th place. They haven't done it this year, by the way, apart from today. There was once last year, which was Singapore. That wasn't pure pace alone. If you go back to some other races as well where they've done it, Azerbaijan in 2021, that was a double retirement. You've got Austria from 2019, that was a double retirement. 2018 on that one. 2019, the German Grand Prix, you remember the incredibly wet conditions there.
That lovely livery.
The other times where they have performed as badly as they performed today, there was a reason for it that wasn't pace. On pure pace alone, I might not be mad in saying this, this might have been their worst result since 2012.
I was about to say,
genuinely,
is this the worst the car has been since the start of the hybrid era?
Yes, for me, without a doubt. In terms of pure pace, I cannot think of another Grand Prix where they have been as slow as what they were today. There were a few times at the beginning of last season where Hamilton was seriously off the pace, but George Russell was on it. So like Imola's probably a good example of that, and Saudi Arabia from last year. But at least in that instance, you had one car fighting up there. Today, if George Russell had finished the race, the best result still would have been 8th. And quite honestly, the amount of things that needed to happen as well. Piastri and Ricciardo, I think they both had the pace to beat the Mercedes today. I think Tsunoda had the pace to beat the Mercedes. Ocon could have done because his teammate did. You had, to be honest, I don't know what Albon would have been able to do without his first lap retirement, given where Sargent was. So
I think safely saying that if all of those had a clean race, Russell not in the points and maybe Hamilton at best 10th would be a fair assessment.
Yeah. Anyone remember when they won this race last year?
Exactly.
How's that happen?
Madness.
12 months ago.
It's only good for no pods.
Sorry, there going, can we cut the side pods off, guys?
Take them off again.
I love no side pods.
Should we? Sorry, we have to do this. Should we review some bold predictions?
Yeah, I'm going to bow out gracefully on this one.
Gonna do it quickly and quietly.
Yeet myself.
Sam did need the comeback to end all comebacks in order to salvage a non-loss in this season-long championship.
Narrator.
Unfortunately,
he didn't get it.
Did it?
Turn 1 failed.
So you said that Max Verstappen would not win one of the 2 Grand Prix, and he won both of them.
Yeah, and I thought with the pole from Norris, and then when I started seeing some of the carnage unfold, there was a little glimmer in me that thought, something's going to happen here. And also, I'm waiting for the day that there's a DNF just from one of them having a reliability problem. It's never going to come. That car will live through every natural disaster that we ever see.
Apocalypse.
Honestly, the Red Bull will never die.
Do you remember when Red Bull had that reliability issue in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix qualifying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was the only one they've had.
That was a long time ago now.
That was a long time ago.
Literally 20 Grand Prix.
Oh,
or so.
God.
Anyway, so that didn't go very well. Harry, you said that one of the two Mercedes would win one of the Grand Prix. As mentioned, they might have had their worst race in 10 years.
That's pretty bad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
What about yours, Ben?
Well, you know what? I'm fine with mine. I said that an Alfa Romeo was going to finish in the top 8, and I don't know if Bottas would have been a mile away. And Alfa Romeo, I don't know why they retired the car. Maybe it was just to spite me. At this point, who's to say?
Did you said 1 or 2? I can't remember.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
I mean,
only one.
Well, they both retired anyway.
But they both retired. So I think that it was not a good week again.
Not as bad, though.
It might have been marginally better than last time, but not by much.
We are on a roll of stinkers.
Yeah, it's been a bad 3 races, isn't it?
We've had some close calls previously where we've been a position off or, we're one thing away from happening, but 3 in a row of nowhere nears.
Nah.
We'll get on next time.
Speaking of predicting things that don't end up being true, we bigged up the Brazilian Grand Prix in our preview.
It's my under pressure.
Never misses. It missed. Why did it miss, Sam?
I don't know why it missed. It was strange. I don't think the carnage helped, actually. I think whilst it looked like quite a spicy start to the Grand Prix, I think actually the tyres caused a struggle. And then I think the lack of cars on the track meant that we were more spaced out and cars naturally kind of fitted into their natural positions. And having 2 cars that were lapped the whole Grand Prix meant that that's even less competitive running. That didn't help. I think Ben, as you said in the sprint review that you did, I think the DRS zone was pretty much nailed on actually. And the concept that they do here, which they should do in Mexico and Australia, where, start, finish straight, DRS goes to the driver behind, and then the next straight, the DRS goes to the next driver that's behind, not the same driver from the start, finish straight, is the right philosophy. I think that makes for exciting racing. We had some moments and it just never really fully materialized. You turned around to me at one point and went, we're not even halfway through.
Yeah, it went on a bit, didn't it?
At lap 34 of 71, I felt like I aged many a year. I'm not sure why it missed, but despite it having spice, it wasn't the right kind. It was like, I'm looking for a bit of cayenne, a bit of paprika, and I've accidentally put thyme in my curry. And now it's horrible.
Good.
On the right day...
It's put basil in it.
Yeah, on the right day, thyme's a banger, but not when I want paprika.
Oh, boy. That's got me, that. Nicely done. Why wasn't it very good, Harry?
I don't know, mate.
Great analysis, as always.
I was hoping you'd have the answer.
No, do you know what? And this may not be the answer. I know it's great for immediate drama, but when you lose almost a quarter of the field on lap 1, it's not good for a race, because I know we did get Hülkenberg, Ricciardo and Piastri back, but they might as well not have been there the rest of the afternoon. They were limping round. Ricciardo and Piastri were already a lap down. And I think Ricciardo...
We finished with 12.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. We're 12 out there by the end.
Exactly.
Really.
So I don't think that helped, because as you say, there were a few contenders in there, at least in the midfield. And I guess Piastri, you would say maybe further up towards the top, that we lost almost immediately. Ricciardo would have been in that battle of the top 10, as we saw in the sprint. Piastri could well have been in that, or even further up. Albon could well have been in that battle as well, and we lost all of them. So I'll say maybe that's partially to blame. But it was a shame, because I know we say the sprint just is like a little prelude to the race, but it wasn't, because we had quite an exciting sprint. Still hate it, but quite an exciting sprint in terms of the battles, which we never really got today.
But we did comment that the only thing that changed was the fact that Perez couldn't get past Alonso, and we'd have had the exact same top 1, 2, and 3 from the sprint to the main race.
Well, exactly.
Again,
Fernando Alonso saving That's all there.
And it's only marginal now, isn't it? 1 place because of the qualifying difference.
Yeah. Anyway, so bit of a shame. Brazil missed a little bit on that one.
Well, I think if you were to, speaking of like the sprint and the comparison to the race, everyone apart from Esteban Ocon doing 8 stops was on a 2-stop strategy today, which when you think about it, that replicates the sprint as closely as possible. Sounds weird, but if you have the sprint race be 1/3 of a Grand Prix, that means that a stint length in the race on a 2-stop is the same as a sprint race. It is like 72 laps, divide that by 3, you get 24 laps. So the average stint length out there today was a sprint race, but we didn't get the same sort of entertainment, which makes me think, yes, it is absolutely the reason that you mentioned at the beginning. There weren't enough drivers out there. And I think we are actually, generally speaking, quite, maybe lucky is the right word. We're quite lucky that attrition rates are so low in modern Formula One, and retirements due to reliability don't happen anywhere near as often as they used to, because if they did, we'd have more races like we had out there today, where there just aren't enough contenders to develop into a good race. Hey, I mean, we had a good race yesterday. We didn't have a good race today. What's one of the fundamental differences between the 2 days? One had 20 drivers pretty much. One had 12. It kind of makes sense. There's not much else separating the 2 races. I'd tell you what would help. A couple more drivers out there. Maybe get another team or 2.
Extra team.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It's a good idea there, man.
I think today was a good advert for it, though. I think today was a good advert.
I think if you remove the Alonso-Perez battle and the crash at the start, which arguably could make the point that it shouldn't count to a good race or not, this might have been the worst race of the season in terms of outright action and interest.
Well, everything just worked itself out, didn't it? It just, it worked, apart from Perez not quite being able to work out Fernando Alonso, everything else finished roughly as it should have done based on who finished the Grand Prix.
Yeah, pretty much. Good stuff. Well done, Brazil.
Nice one, Brazil. Should we do big brain strategy?
Yes, let's do it. I've thought of one.
Here come the killers.
Bob, we're going to need you to box for wets. What? It's not even raining out. What are you talking about? Yeah, and Bob, if you get a chance, let your teammate pass you. What? He crashed out. He's not even in the race.
I went to karaoke last night and I did Smile Like You Mean It.
Tune.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Bloody tune.
Nice one. Was that your big brain strategy, doing that?
Yeah, I thought of one.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, makes sense. You can go first, Sam, since you have thought of one.
Thank you. It's got to be the conversation between Russell and his engineer about, hey, guys, are we working as a team or can I get past? And then they just go, we're discussing. And it's like, how have you not thought about this potential opportunity coming around when, you were starting on the grid next to each other at one point? Honestly, Mercedes, get it together with your communication because it is becoming very Ferrari-esque.
I think they're still discussing it now.
It must be because Russell is still behind Hamilton.
There was a really depressing moment when they were just battling. I think it was over P6 at the time, and little did they know it was going to get even worse. But they were just kind of squabbling over P6, and it was like, oh, wow.
Squabbling's kind. I don't
this
think Russell
is a real
got alongside
race.
It was a bit lame, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, I'm 3/10 behind you. Oh, it's 9/10 behind.
Well, I probably would have got, I think he was quicker, but because it's so slow, you can't get past
It's like 2 London buses trying to fight each other.
Pretty much. Harry, big brain strat?
I'm going to go for an actual good one.
Oh, all right.
I know.
Oh.
But I just, sometimes we should appreciate the good ones, but just Aston Martin saying, Fernando, I'm going to go plan A. And he goes, copy. I agree.
How easy is it?
What a breath of fresh air.
How easy is that? Ferrari, Mercedes.
We do the plan we said we were going to do. Driver says, yes.
It's working. Well done, us.
P3.
The strategy has worked. We finished basically where we started.
Anyway.
My big brain strategy. I was tempted to give this to Esteban Ocon for not advertising the fact that he was going to overtake Nico Hülkenberg in this Grand Prix, and he did it successfully, but I'm not going to give it to him. I'm actually also going with George Russell, but a slightly later radio message, which was his new strategy of something is so obvious, I'm not even going to say it.
And
that was good.
He had some good ones this race.
And Mercedes radio, and Russell in particular, was was
sassy.
gold.
He was sassy.
I mean, both of them. It's time for you to use this tyre now, Lewis.
I've been using it for 5 laps, dude. Pits that lap.
Literally then pits. Oh, dear.
Do you want me to lose positions or do you want me to go racing? Up to you guys.
Sass. I could do one or the other.
To you? And the response was, do both.
Do both, please, George. You're a racing driver.
Right, we're going to take our final break today. Moment of the race is on the other side. Okay, moment of the race. Harry, what have you got?
Yes, I got to go first, so I'll pick the one that probably everyone goes.
Damn it.
The one.
Really hoping I go first.
It's that final lap. It's that Alonso Perez battle because it's probably the most exciting thing it was the most exciting thing that happened all race. We were screaming.
Actually, you can see it again on social media. We are screaming at it.
Oh boy, we be screaming. It was so good. It was so good.
It was amazing. I love, and Brazil produces these to the lying moments quite regularly, and it's exciting. Loved it.
How hard do you think Alonso was pressing the battery button?
More battery!
Just all of it.
Deploy!
Now. Anyway, so that one.
Sam?
Mine then after that one came after the race. Smiles on White Crack.
Oh, come on, man.
It was we laughed a lot.
We had a very big giggle. Thank you,
I
Crofty,
can believe that.
I think he does it intentionally.
Honestly, ridiculous.
My moment of the race. Machine Gun Kelly. What a muppet.
He left halfway through.
Yeah, like he's a diehard Alfa Romeo fan. He wasn't interested.
After retirement, I better go home.
I'm off, mate.
I'm going. I can't even say like 100 of the words I want to call him. But what a plonker.
This is a pure advert for the
plonker.
classic case of stop inviting celebrities that literally don't understand what Formula One is.
What a grid. Well, honestly, Rubens Barrichello was there. And if you don't like Rubens Barrichello, I would assess you as a person.
He's one of the loveliest men in the world. He's honestly gorgeous.
Yeah. And then we had Machine Gun Kelly. And then just Martin Brundle outwardly saying to Bernie Ecclestone, how's your taxes this month, mate?
He said, you've had a difficult month with HMRC.
I can't wait for another Martin gif where he does the pause and the glasses come down.
So good. Anyway.
And then he speaks to Felipe Massa, and I'm like, okay, he's going to bring up the 2008 championship here, isn't he? And he didn't, but that would have capped off like
been a good
the grid walk to end all grid walks.
He smashed it. He's still on it, old Martin. He's got it.
Entertaining.
We have
so
many.
Submissions?
Honestly, we have so many. So, and because producer Kirsty is not here today, she normally listens to them before, so they're not vetted, and some of these will probably get cut out. So I'm sorry in advance. But anyway, because he was first, and before I'd even asked people, Hazard for Sabala.
Right, boys, moment of the race for me. Very early on when Lando Norris tried to move on Verstappen, I thought, oh, bloody hell, here we go. An actual proper race for once. And then within like 3 laps, he was 5 seconds behind. So we can dream, boys. We can dream. But bit of a naff race, to be honest, apart from the last lap. You lot have been saying all week Brazil never disappoints. So well done to you lot for highlighting that. You are cursed. Cheers, boys.
We are.
We are so cursed.
We are cursed.
He's not wrong.
There's a snake in my boot.
Woody is next.
Tom?
What's up, fellas? It's your boy Woody here from the Omaha in North Carolina, USA. Moment of the race for me today was Ted taking a parting shot at MGK and Machine Gun Kelly for pulling a Chindles Labindles and leaving the race early. Who knows? Maybe MGK and Chucky have an early resi at a Brazilian steakhouse.
Chindles Labindles.
You're my favorite deputy.
Good. Thank you, Woody. Bristol Liam is next.
All right, my bub.
All right, boys.
All right.
My moment of the race was when Cholix, Leno Hydraulics, crashed out before the race has started. This technically isn't even a moment of the race. Cheers.
That was Gert Lush.
When he said Cholix, I wondered where that was going.
Where's that going?
Blimey.
We have to get the beeps out.
That was brutal, though, right at the end. Say, and he's technically correct. It's not even a moment of the race because he didn't get to start it.
The moment of the formation lap. All good always.
Highly breaking. Wow, what a race. Good old Charles for getting that domino effect started right before the race even began. And then we just saw a bunch of cars just drop off the grid like flies. Moment of the race. Gotta be that super spicy fight. Towards the end of the race with Fernando and Checo. I mean, Checo finally driving like his life depends on it, as he should be doing the entire season. And as usual, the fight ended with a little bit of a sad disappointment. But good old Fernando finally on the podium. Love you guys at the podcast. Bye.
Good old Fernando.
I think that fight for P2 in the championship might be over.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh dear. SoCal Jen is next.
Hey, it's Jen from SoCal. Hello there. Moment of the race. Toss up between Leclerc's, I guess, longest ever walk back to the paddock after the formation lap incident. And then Fernando Alonso there at the end. What a photo finish. Way to go, Fernando. Keep breaking late and join the Patreon.
Oh, she's so right for that. You're so real, SoCal Jen.
Always going to get on for that, SoCal.
That's like a trademark.
Moment of the race now from James.
Hey, LB boys, James here with my moment of the race. My moment of the race. Well, I couldn't really watch the whole race because you had to pick up real dad from the airport. But my moment of the race is definitely Leclerc spinning off on the formation lap. Terrible for him, really. Hydraulics failure. I mean, Ferrari are basically torturing me now in prison. Couldn't be worse for him. See you in Las Vegas and keep breaking late. Bye.
Bye, James. God, jet setter real dad.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Frazzle is our next one.
Alonso is him. Alonso is just, he is that guy. Alonso is that guy. My favorite moment of the race was when Alonso was on there and he said, it's Formula One time, and like Formula One all over that track.
Yes.
Just unbelievable from him. The defending, the racing, the IQ on that man is insane.
It's Formula One time.
I just wish that Alonso, as he got out of the car, just started screaming, Tomato!
Yeah, that'd be good, wouldn't it?
Oh, I love that man.
He was emotional though, was old Fernando.
I think it's a big return to form.
He
cares.
He's exhausted, mate.
He cares as much as he ever did.
He's an old man and he's had a stressful afternoon.
I can relate.
I'd be weepy too. Brazil? No, Norm from Texas is next.
Norm from Brazil.
Oh, hello, my late-breaking friends from across Lake Big Wet. It is I, Norm from Texas, and I am here to give you my moment of the race. And my moment of the race was the beginning and the end. In the beginning, we had a tremendous crash, which rained parts and hopes and dreams across the track, and we got a red flag. And then at the end, we had old man Alonso saying, "Not today, Sergio, that podium is mine." Anyway, great day for McLaren. This one goes out for you, buggers. Yeah.
Oh, it's Curly Jefferson.
Curly Jefferson.
He's with old Greg. Drinking Bailey's from a shoe.
Right, boys. Curly Jefferson here. My moment of the race is a split between Chuckles McCluckles taking the scenic route around half the racetrack before it even started, and the absolute savagery of Fernando Alonso's defense in the last couple laps. Cheers.
It's the first timey. Huh?
Cheers, Curly. Sebalicious. Hold on to your hats, everybody.
Oh, God.
My moment of the race for the Paulie Paulison GP is every driver I like sucking to the point where Lance Stroll was the man my hopes were laying on. Yeah.
You know you've gone low. Lance Stroll is who you're rooting for.
I think it's another Shmuel is next.
Hello, late breaking boys. My moment of the race was realizing what real excitement was again in Formula One when, for the first time in this season, I think Max was actually challenged for first place by Lando. Yeah. That was my moment of the race. Great podcast. Love you guys.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Interesting.
A really big gammon.
Yeah, now no longer a big ham. It's now a big gammon.
She's become British.
Evolved. Pokemon.
Waffles.
Oh.
Cheers, a big gammon.
Thank you.
Not even sure what that means.
Great point. Great point.
I'll have them for breakfast.
Stick figure?
That's a new one, I think.
Okay.
First timey.
Highlight breaking, first time submitter here, medium time listener. Moment of the race had to be when Verstappen went in for his last pit stop and all of us were collectively wishing for a safety car so Norris could win. Didn't happen, but would have been cool if it did. Cool race. You guys are awesome. Join the Discord. Bye.
I'd definitely say on about 8 occasions, can we have a safety car, please?
Would have been good.
I love medium-term listener.
Medium-term listener is fantastic.
Beefy Beef is next.
Brazil beef.
Hello. I have an essay due in 3 days. And I got my septum pierced. That's my update. Moment of the race.
Septum beef.
Was Crofty saying that Lando was 3 and a lot of seconds behind Max Verstappen. Good work. Okay, bye.
Thank you, Crofty.
3 and a lot of seconds.
Many treasurable moments from Crofty this race.
Oh, Lord. Save Leclerc is next.
Free Leclerc.
Oh
no!
It's time.
The Save Leclerc campaign has never been stronger. I'm too tired of this. I can't even pick a moment of the race. We just need to get that man out of Ferrari.
Hey, get in touch. We'll work this out.
Shall we actually? We're going to do the t-shirts, folks. Stay tuned. I'm going to release them.
Okay. Sorry, the law.
I'm not going to make him in a prison cell
again. Kronenberg is next.
Isn't that a beer?
That's Kronenberg. Anyway, a beer is next.
Yo, what up? It's Kronenberg reporting from California. Moment of the race.
You know, SoCal
we'll probably have to say Leclerc crashing out formation lap, but that wasn't technically during the race. So I'm going to have to go with Fernando Alonso defending like he was racing for first. That was awesome. What a last couple laps that was. Anyways, keep breaking late. Love the podcast.
Thank you, Kronenberg.
Thank you very much.
The real John Moe is there.
Who's the fake John Moe?
Can't make my mind up whether it's the train wreck of a start or the photo finish. But what a race. Great week. Great times. Congrats, everyone.
Congrats, everyone.
Congrats, everyone. I'm sure Alfa Romeo are loving that.
Lordy,
I love
lordy,
the positivity.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many. Bogan Lamb is next.
G'day.
Oh.
Bogan Lamb here. Fernando Alonso.
Where is he in my ears?
Yeah, Fernando Alonso.
All right, fair dues.
Okay, thanks, Bogan.
First ever submission. I like that, though. It was in stereo.
Obviously, that was blowing my mind. I didn't know where you were coming from.
Ooh. Oh, my sweet Lord. How do I read this?
Willage Ricardo. 33.
Moment of the race, Charles crashing, formation lap, and just going, why am I so unlucky with an expletive? That just says it all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
That was too many. There's too many.
Some of those probably won't make it in, which we apologize for, but we appreciate the love.
Honestly, some of you just don't bother next time.
No.
If you see that many, skip it. Come back next week.
No.
You're going to have fun editing those down, Harry.
I'm so glad that I don't have to touch this.
Sam gets to go home and have a spag bowl.
It is an hour drive home, essentially. I'm not driving.
Spag bowl. Lovely.
It's spag bowl. Okay, you don't say bolognese.
Oh, it's an hour and 20. Can we get out of here?
No, I'm going to argue a bit about bolognese.
No.
I just like to wind him up.
I go, and I find it very funny. Yeah, we can leave. Thanks for listening. Join the Discord. I might get annoyed at you for submitting, which actually we ask you to do every single week, and we love you for it. Patreon's available. You get 2 extra episodes every single month, and they are ad-free, just like every other podcast. You also get extra perks as well, so check them out. Late Breaking F1 on all social media. X, which used to be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'll say Facebook. We don't do anything on Facebook, but we are there.
Oh, I said that.
Yeah, we're connected up with Instagram, so just follow us there.
Those of you that do comment on Facebook, just so you're aware,
we never look.
We never look.
The only thing we don't look at.
No, so true. So we're sorry if you are commenting. This is where we've got 1 million followers, and I didn't know. TikTok is available. We're very active on TikTok. YouTube, we're growing. We're nearly at 10K.
5K.
Nearly at 5K. But thank you to all those that are watching the videos that we're putting out. This is also available on YouTube. Other than that, tuning in for the midweek episode. It's going to be me and Ben, I think, just chatting general F1 because there's no Grand Prix next weekend. We get a weekend off. We're going to get to relax before the big Vegas. I also noticed that the advertising for Vegas started before the podium started happening, which was
Vegas.
They were in it instantaneously. They're like, they crossed the line. We could do Vegas. Join us. We love you. Thanks very much. I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been Harry Eade.
And remember, keep breaking late.
Brazil.